I think I'm gonna say this and you're all gonna cringe, but I know Sonakshi, you're gonna smile, is like AI. I think AI is a buzzword. It's not gonna go anywhere. Um, I think AI is not gonna take your job. People who know how to use AI will take your job.
Hello, welcome everyone here. Today we have our superstar guest, Piper, with us, and this is our very first AMA. We are, hosting this for the very first time in our community, which is called Roaring Ladies of E-commerce. For those who are not already part of it, we'll send you a link towards end of the session. Feel free to join it. We share thoughts, we share anything and everything that you as a woman would love to get your minds onto, get your thoughts onto. So yeah, but it's about time to begin. Over to you, Piper. Everyone would love to know just a small introduction, although a lot of us already know about what you have been doing, but would love to understand in your own words what you have been doing. A little short intro about you, Piper.
I'm Piper. I'm based in Brooklyn in New York. Acquisition, those new customers come in, folks hand the baton to me, and I'm much more focused on that sort of that experience of nurturing from emails to SMS to even site experience or sort of other platforms that just help retain and nurture folks in their journey with your brand and sort of in the ecosystem. So that's kind of what I've been doing for the last couple of years. I absolutely love it. And yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Thank you so much, Piper. Just to quickly introduce myself, I'm Sonakshi. I'm founder and CEO of Manifest AI. And today I'm representing, like I said, Roaring Ladies of E-commerce. And without wasting any more time, let's begin. I'm super excited. We have tons of questions, Piper, for you. But we'll start with the very first question, which I had for you. Being in this, being in this industry for almost a decade now, what has been your favorite metric? What drives you crazy? What makes you so passionate? Like you said, you love this. What makes you love so much about e-commerce? What's that one metric that really drives you?
Okay, I'm gonna give you two. One is a boring one, and one is maybe a slightly unconventional one. I think in retention, something like we look at a lot to really figure out just how much value a customer or someone's bringing is like lifetime value, LTV. So this is the total amount of revenue that a person is either predicted to spend in their lifetime with the brand, or that they have actually spent. And that's a really big metric to figure out as you're caring for somebody, as you're emailing them, as you're inviting them to events. Is that helping them spend a little bit more money incrementally? So that's like a really basic one that's so important to look at. But there's one more that I'm going to throw in that's like a little bit less, maybe a little less technical, but still incredibly important. I know we've got some CX, customer experience folks in the room. I think one of the best metrics for retention, for customer experience, is a response rate. If you create content, you send an email, you send a text, you have something on your site that is so compelling that somebody takes time out of their day to email you back, to talk to a customer service agent, that is remarkable. That is so much more insightful than a click, than an open rate. That is truly profound. So a little bit more qualitative. You get feedback from the customer. They maybe are telling you what they like, what they don't like, but that's the secret KPI that I think is incredibly underrated.
Yeah, that makes sense. So maybe a takeaway from this answer, Piper, could be if any of us is looking out for a new job in e-commerce space, maybe you ask that brand what's your LTV. So that also gives you an indication of how well the brand is doing and like what are you picking up as a task when you're joining them.
Yeah. I mean, repurchase rate, there's so many. There's a lot that are really important that give kind of like a holistic view, but LTV is a really good one. You ideally want your LTV to be more than just the value of your first product. So yeah, definitely.
Thanks, Piper. So now we'll start our AMA. So first question is from Nikki Ali, which is, I am a newbie. I want to one day do what you do, Piper. So what do you suggest to get my foot in the door, and how do I learn from what you know? Thanks.
There are so many great free resources out there. So many great free resources. I feel very lucky. I'm in a lot of different women in marketing communities and organizations that there's a lot of young women out of college who are still in college, who are studying, that are just looking for ways to get more hands-on kind of marketing experience. And while I focus on sort of retention marketing and lifecycle marketing, I would still recommend a plethora of different types of courses. HubSpot Academy has so many free online classes with certifications. They look great on your resume to learn about inbound marketing, to learn about their email marketing tool, to learn their actual CRM software. Even if you don't have a client or a job that uses that software, just learning what types of features or functionalities these tools have is really insightful. Klaviyo is also an amazing email service provider. They have tons of classes as well. A lot of SMS tools like Attentive, PostScript, they all have these kinds of online academies. Some of them are a little light and fluffy, really just to like teach you the basics of the tool, but there's a lot that are incredibly insightful and technical that they can kind of beef up your resume, but also get you a bit of exposure to the types of and the nitty-gritty technical side of retention and life cycle. But you don't have to just do an email marketing course. Take an inbound course, take a content marketing course. Those are all things that will sort of help you do your job better if you choose the retention life cycle space.
Got it. Just a follow-up question on that, Piper. Like if someone has to prioritize, what they should pick up first, do you think like email marketing is the core of retention marketing, so that should be the first thing that they should pick up and then choose next, or how do you approach it?
Ooh. You know what? I would. It always cracks me up when I meet like e-commerce leaders that are like, email's dead. And just because you don't read all the emails you got in your inbox does not mean that the channel is dead. It's an old channel. It's a channel that's existed for a while. But again, we still get ads in newspapers. I mean, that's also a very old channel. It still works. There's still returns. So I'd say email is a great place to get started. The industry is rapidly changing with generative AI, with agentic AI, with all sorts of different tools, but learn the core function of it. You don't have to, literally start from A to Z, but you should be pretty familiar with how email marketing works. And that kind of helps trickle across push notifications, across SMS, across other sort of retention channels.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for that, Piper. Now moving on to next question, which I think is from your colleague from Epic Gardening. It's from Ashley. What do you think are the most important metrics to monitor in retention marketing?
Yeah, so I know we mentioned some sort of like KPIs earlier. Just some things that are really important looking, whether you're in retention or you're not in retention and you're a business leader, you're running an e-com company. There's a couple things you just have to keep an eye on, whether it's weekly or monthly or quarterly. The first I'd say is what return customer rate. What percentage of your total customers are coming back and what are new? The ideal, you're going to spend so much money on ads and sort of acquiring new customers, but of course, figuring out what is your ideal balance. I have a freelance client today. I was chatting with them and they were saying that their goal is 50-50. They always want to have a 50-50 balance. Every month it kind of shifts and it changes as you're pulling different levers, but that's a really good basic metric to monitor. You want to take it like one level further, a little more nerdy and exciting. I know Ashley from Epic Gardening will also find this nerdy and exciting. You can use certain analytic tools in lifecycle retention to actually get more granular on product or category, like a collection of products. And what is the repurchase rate? If somebody comes to your store and buys your signature most famous product, what percentage of those first-time customers that bought that come back? And if you realize there's a product you have or a category of products you have that just has a really high repurchase rate, that means people are buying that item for the first time ever in their first experience with your brand, and they're so inspired they come back again to buy something new. You need to know that. You need to know that. So repurchase rate is also really great. And I know we mentioned lifetime value as well, but lifetime value, it's great to look at LTV by a product or category base. You want your customers to have lots of different products in their carts and in their orders. You want them to come back many times, but you really have to get just scratch below the surface. You just want to kind of roughly know how is that changing every quarter, every season, every year.
Got it, Piper. Another follow-up question on this from my side would be, you mentioned repeat purchase rate. Do you also consider factors, for example, let's say, you did some collab with certain creators and for certain source of customers, the repeat purchase rate is massively different versus a certain set of customers. And do you take that factor in while doing your retention marketing?
My favorite question. Attribution is is a really, I don't want to say it's a dirty word, but it's a really messy, nuanced topic in marketing. Is how do you attribute revenue or success to different channels, to different levers? You have to have a way of measuring this. Every brand will have their own way of measuring this. Now, from the retention lifecycle point of view, I know when I send an email is often the last touch point before someone heads back to the site to purchase. If I attribute email all of the credit, it's going to look like email is the only thing that drives purchases. But we know there's influencer marketing, there's affiliate marketing, there's paid ads, there's organic traffic, there's so many different channels. So a lot of tools, there's a lot of great lifecycle retention tools. Lifetimely is one, Peel Insights is another, where you can actually get a breakdown of some of these core metrics like a repurchase rate, like LTV. You could break it down by channel. And again, this is using like UTMs. This is sort of looking at like the source of the traffic and then the conversion and kind of how you attribute it. There is no one pure golden answer. Like it really is, you have to just pick a system and an attribution model that works for you. But I mean, a lot of these tools let you figure out what's a repurchase rate by discount code. Is someone using an influencer and ambassador code? And again, you want to know like what percentage of them are coming back. I mean, with Epic, we had some amazing creators and affiliates that had very high repurchase rates, very high lifetime value, far above the rest of the partners and ambassadors we worked with. It's not a bad thing, but it's great to know who those sort of standout creators are that are influencing orders. So yes, very good to have a tool, find a tool, whether it's Google Analytics, just something that's giving you a little more granular data.
Absolutely, Piper. That makes so much sense. And maybe, that brings me to a fact that maybe right after this call, we'll have you send your tech stack as well in terms of analysis.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
I've definitely got a dream tech stack.
Awesome, Piper. So now next question is from Diana. What are some interesting retention projects you have implemented that have had surprising results at different life cycle stages?
Yeah, so there's like really fun, exciting, sexy ones, but I'm also going to talk about the really boring ones that are really important and just don't always get a lot of love. The first is a welcome series. This is sort of like life cycle, email marketing 101 is what is that first welcome flow, that welcome experience that people get via email, via SMS, via push. A lot of brands will just set this and forget it. I think like minimum once a year, ideally once a quarter, you go back and you bring new life and you refresh and you make sure products are updated in this. But figuring out that like welcome experience has been really interesting. Something great we've done at Epic that has been such a fun project was we actually, instead of having our email and our SMS welcome experience mirror each other, where they're literally giving identical information, which in my honest opinion is a mistake. These are two different channels. You can experiment and have two different types of branding and messaging and content. What we did for our SMS program is we actually made our welcome series a survey. Every day, every 2 days, folks get a question. What type of garden do you have? What type of things do you grow? People love a survey. People love a dumb quiz. And it's something that I actually recommend with a lot of my freelance clients. It's a great way to get engagement. It's also a great way to get CRM data. So you're getting data points, zero-party data. You're asking people to voluntarily give you information that can help you personalize the emails, the texts, the ads, all sorts of different experiences that they might get. So again, this is like, sounds kind of boring, is like, update your welcome flow. And it really is 101, but I don't know, even the best brands in the world, like haven't updated their welcome series in the last 6 months. And like, that's not great. Again, you should be constantly learning, iterating from subject line tests to even like what kind of data you're acquiring. So definitely something that's not so sexy and fun, but is like such an important retention project.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And like, just curious, Piper, like, how do you guys have your welcome flow set? I've seen, brands setting up, talking more about their story, their founder story in a welcome flow. Like, what has worked for you usually in the welcome flow for Epic Gardening?
Yeah, I think for Epic Gardening and a lot of freelance clients I've worked with, that welcome series is like a handshake. It's like you've just met someone at a dinner party. You want to tell them maybe a little bit more about you than they maybe picked up from a few minutes on your website. So this is where we always tell the founder story. And again, do we expect that founder story email to have really high click-throughs? No, not necessarily. We just want people to open it, to read it, to take a gander. It's fun if you add a great call to action, or you've written a long letter format and you throw in something at the bottom that says, hey, reply to this email and like tell me your story. How did you get interested in this topic? That we've seen really great results with. Our CS team, customer service team, and customer experience team like often have gotten really wonderful responses. And it's, again, more personal touch point. It's an opportunity to like have a real human like be like, oh, thanks for sharing that. So that's something kind of basic, but also product education. What's your high LTV product? What products do you have that have high repurchase rates? Like throw those in your welcome series every quarter. Go in, update them, plug in new products, plug in seasonal language and copy. That's super basic. Like it's not very sexy and nuanced, but again, people just like really set this and forget it because you have so many other great projects that are on your plate.
Absolutely, absolutely. And for a retention marketer, do you think a quarter level planning makes a lot of sense, or a month level planning makes a lot of sense, or the annual planning is what you prefer?
Sorry, I don't think I could ever keep up with like monthly level automation updates. Every month you're sending out new campaigns and messages and you're testing out copy. And the way I like to think about it as you're sending a one-off email or a one-off text is like you're trying to gauge, are people interested in that topic or that email or that product? If the answer is yes, and you're getting really good insight, people are clicking and they're opening, you can turn those email campaigns into automations that live on in perpetuity. Once a quarter, you should be just going through all your automations. Are any of them having bad open rates? Do you need to add some new subject lines? Are any of them struggling with click-through rates? Are you getting spam reports or any of like, you just kind of got to check and touch base. And a lot of tools make it pretty easy to just export data. But yeah, I mean, you should, in the dream world, you have like monthly campaign planning, and then you have a quarterly vision about sort of what's on. In the dream world, you could have a whole quarter of content planned out, but gotta have some flexibility there. But yeah, it's just minimum once a year. Like everybody, January, it'll be slow. Just like go and check in on all the things that your cart abandoned, your browse abandoned, like really obvious basic stuff that doesn't get set up. We always get so excited by the fun, sexy projects. That sometimes we just like don't go back to the needle movers, the things that drive the most revenue, that drive the most first-time purchases or repurchases, like a post-purchase flow, like a cart abandon. So don't sleep on those.
Absolutely, Viper. Thanks for that. Now moving on to the next question. It's from Holly. She has put up 3 questions. I'll cover all of those 3. So first one is, how do you sharpen your skills in your role? What resources, communities, courses help you get better at your job? This, I think you have answered pretty much of it earlier as well. Second question is, what specific topics or skills do you want to go deeper in 2025? And third, how do you show your boss and the rest of the company the impact you are having on the business?
Yes, 3 excellent questions. So wait, remind me the first one again. My brain's already thinking about answers to the second and the third. The first question is, remind me.
First was around how do you sharpen your skills, resources, courses to recommend or to get better.
So I know I recommended some just like kind of general courses online. I would say one of the most impactful things on my retention marketing, strategies, tactics, the testing that I'm doing is that in New York City, there's a pretty small but mighty retention marketing community. And again, I love joining women in e-commerce groups. I love joining women in marketing groups. And I think it's even more special when you find someone that has kind of the same niche as you, the same topic. Maybe it's marketers who work at agencies, or maybe it's marketers who focus on SEO, or again, there's like further smaller niches. They may not be the biggest communities. They may not be the most vocal and active, but there have been a couple like monthly roundtables where like I go and I sit with other retention marketers for e-commerce brands. They're in the exact same position I am at similar types of companies. And one person shares a case study of like what they're working on, questions they have, and everyone just goes around and kind of talks shop. They suggest ideas, they make proposals. This is something that was organized by like another group, like a SaaS tool that just wanted to bring the community together. But I have formed friendships with these people that have gone beyond that group, and I get coffee with some of these people, and I reached out. Momofuku is such a cool brand, and I literally just cold LinkedIn message their email marketer to be like, hey, I love your work. We should just have a virtual chat. And we spent an hour talking about MMS and GIFs and like different email A/B testing. And you just kind of get to talk and exchange nerdy ideas. So I highly recommend that. I think that's a really great way to sharpen skills. If you're earlier in your career, like take those online courses, do all these different kind of free academies and automations. You don't have to pay to upskill. You can watch YouTube. YouTube University is great, like, yeah. So I think that's like a great, find those communities really, like they're out there for CX, for operations, for different aspects of e-commerce. Yes. And so second question, remind me again.
Yeah, it's around what specific topics or skills do you want to go deeper in 2025?
I think I'm going to say this and you're all going to cringe, but I know Sonakshi, you're going to smile, is like AI. I think AI is a buzzword. It's not going to go anywhere. I think AI is not going to take your job. People who know how to use AI will take your job. So my big goal is not just sharpening my ChatGPT or Claude or LLM skills. I'm not necessarily trying to find some online AI academy to take per se, but I'm taking demos with different companies using AI just to see, like, what are people doing? How does this work? How could this improve recommendation engines for an e-commerce site? How does this change a pop-up experience? I think like familiarizing yourself with ways that different AI tools are being used in your industry. You don't need to get the tool. You don't have to pay for the tool, but see if they'll just book a demo. Like just see how it works. Just get your brain thinking about ways. It will make your job easier, but you need to like understand like different applications or use cases. So food for thought there.
Third question is, how do you, and also, since we talked about AI, thanks to that, Piper. So guys, there was a dev day today by OpenAI. It's been like, they have launched super interesting capabilities. I'm pretty sure e-commerce gonna have those capabilities very, very soon as well.
Yeah, I'd mentioned that too, that OpenAI is obviously a big leader in generative AI space, but they've been doing like an advent calendar every day, great content marketing every day on YouTube. They open a gift, aka they just tell you about a new feature or a new project. Watch it. It may not be directly related to your technical field, but your brain might get really creative and inspired and be like, oh, this would be amazing for our ads team, or it just might help you think a little bit outside of the box of like where your industry or your skill set could be evolved.
Absolutely, Piper. Now that brings me to the third question from Holly, which is, how do you show your boss and the rest of the company the impact you are having on the business? Very important question.
So for a long time, I worked in more creative tasks and projects in marketing, where it's really hard to measure the success. You create a beautiful event, and like, how do you measure the success of an event? There are ways, there are definitely ways, but like, what are those key performance indicators, those KPIs? I think something I've been doing for a lot of brands and freelance clients and at Epic and elsewhere is kind of like creating some recurring metrics that you are always looking at. So when you're running a campaign, when you're running a project or initiative or an automation, you always have kind of maybe like 3 to 5 metrics that you constantly use. Your leadership team will give feedback to say, oh, but what about this? Can you throw in another metric? Sometimes it's lifetime value. Sometimes it's repurchase rate. I think you have to give a holistic view. Don't just pick the good ones. Give a more holistic view. Sometimes what may be important to the business is about the scale of the impact. They want to know how many people received this campaign and this message. What is the impressions, the mass scale? And with that, what percentage of them converted? Like that's a great, conversion rates apply to everything. A conversion rate doesn't have to just be they checked out, they purchased, they made money. A conversion rate is just, has someone done the action that you wanted them to do? So I think that's really good. And something I'd also always include, your leadership team may never ask for this, but also including like qualitative feedback. Your customer experience team is at the forefront of your business. They are constantly hearing from people with positive, affirmations and also critical feedback of how you could do something better. Talk to them. What feedback have they gotten about this campaign, about an email you sent, about a project, about a discount, about a promotion? I love CX. Like CX and retention are really like the perfect married couple. So your leadership team may not say, oh, what did the customer say? They're not going to ask you for that KPI, but getting it's like getting someone to write a review for your project. Like, oh my God, I love this sale so much. I wasn't able to afford your product, but now I can, and my family's going to enjoy this. Like that's a beautiful copy to like bring with your team, in addition to maybe revenue generated, conversion rates, the impressions or the open rates or recipient counts. So those are good. But yeah, you should have a weekly KPI doc of some sort where you're just like always updating it, kind of a pulse check. Nothing should be too surprising if it succeeds for you.
Super interesting. And like a follow-up question, Piper, which you also mentioned while talking about multiple tools, was always to get a revenue or to get a customer make a purchase, you involve a lot of things in life cycle. It could be an email, it could be SMS, it could be them visiting through retargeting ads. So there is attribution that happens finally, and each of these tools end up showing you ROI, like let's say 10x ROI, 15x ROI. So let's say if you introduce a new tool in your life cycle journey, and now you have to explain it to your team that why and how it is adding value, because it's an attribution, a revenues attribution of multiple tools, and they show it on an individual level. So how have you tackled those challenges in your team?
Yeah, I think something worth pointing out too is like, of course, you want to look at like the overall project success. You deployed something, you implemented it. Was it successful? Was it not? Yeah. But there's like that next layer of, as you're thinking about life cycle of like where customers are in different states of their journey, is also building out some of these like segments of customers. RFM is like a recency, frequency, monetary value is a very common way of kind of breaking down audiences that are at different stages of life cycle. It's not the golden rule. It's a very common way. So you might have these like diehard champion customers who have purchased from you not that recently, maybe like 2 years ago, but they've spent so much money with you, high monetary value, and they've had a lot of orders with you. And those are diehard people that you may never lose. And you may actually not want to grow that group. You may want those people to place orders and actually move to another group. So sometimes you kind of can build out these different segments in Klaviyo, in your customer data platform, your CDP, or in other tools, analytics tools, and slowly monitor the growth. Is there an initiative that you rolled out that was targeting your VIPs, like a loyalty program, and you're hitting VIPs, you're hitting champions, you're hitting folks that helped move them into a new segment where they spent more money above a certain threshold? Or perhaps it's the opposite. Maybe you're looking at people at the beginning of the cycle. They're subscribers. They've never purchased from you before. How, like, you roll out a new project or a new tool and it pushes them over the line to make that first purchase. It usually took 90 days. Now it takes 60 days. Figure out the definition of these segments. Like RFM is kind of a basic one because there's a lot of tools that will do this for you, that start to map out people who are lost and they're asleep. It's going to be really hard to revitalize them. They haven't purchased from you in like 5 years. Like they're just kind of gone. Like those people you may not worry about, but you want to slowly shrink that pot.
Yeah, this is super interesting way of looking at things. Customers who are at risk, about to churn, those kind of things. Makes sense. Piper, moving on to next question. It's from Chris. How do you suggest companies get creative about retention when they are working with very limited budgets?
There's so many things you can do for free. I mean, there's amazing, great, sexy tools that like, deploy all sorts of automations and really cool pop-ups and quizzes. But I think if you have like a basic tech stack, let's say you've got a CS team of some sort, you have an email tool. I would hope you have an SMS tool, just at a basic. I think offering an exceptional experience can be done without lots of frills and a lot of fussy things. If someone leaves a 1-star review on your product, you should send them an automation. Either your CS team may follow up with them personally, or you send an automation of an email or a text saying, hey, I really want to understand more and like learn from your feedback. Our company is really, really grateful that you like are honest. What's going on here? What happened? Those 1-star automations, again, not the funnest project, but like really insightful. That's a stellar experience. And maybe you're offering them a gift card. Maybe you're offering them a refund. Maybe there's something that you're giving them to dazzle and to delight. I think there's a lot of ways that your CS team does that all the time. And the magic is like, can you automate some of those processes? If someone has a certain behavior, they visited a web page of yours or an FAQ page 3 times, maybe, and they're really confused about assembling their product, maybe you send an email automation, person visited this page 3 times, I'm going to send them a follow-up email that's a personal letter style format and says, hey, I'm happy to hop on a call and talk you through the assembly. It looks like you might be having trouble. That's a fantastic experience. That's amazing. Maybe you just send them a YouTube video, show them how to do that. But again, I think it's like you can get creative and fun, and I love giving gift cards and surprising and delighting. But I think when you like get the basic stuff down, it can be really meaningful to go, just add a little extra sparkle to just some of these basic things that people are needing, order status updates or order confirmation.
Yeah, make them feel special.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it has become easier with time. You can personalize everything at this point in time. Absolutely, Piper. Moving on to next question. What are the small tweaks that the team can make quickly and with a little lift go a long way for customer retention?
I would say most companies have some kind of review tool. I mentioned this before, but if someone leaves a 1-star review, you need to follow up with those people. They may not change their review, but like you want that feedback. That is important for retention. They may save you thousands of customers by giving you feedback that you can make tweaks on. Maybe they tell you a product page is confusing. I don't know. Maybe they tell you their order shipped and there was a problem with the packaging. That feedback is maybe not focused on an email that you could improve or a welcome series, but like that is just essential information. Same thing for your most VIP loyal people. If they hit a certain spend threshold, they hit $100 in orders, send them a thank you email, send them a coupon, send them a personal letter. Something we've done at Epic so long is like every single time we have a major sale, like we hit truly our biggest VIPs, our biggest vendors, and we like throw them a personal email from our director of CX being like, we're so grateful for you in all these years, and in case you want to purchase, like here's like $50 to just like get a discount on your order, and here's 3 products I recommend. And we always get great feedback on that. Again, it's like you give a little, you get a lot. So I think hit all the basic stuff, have a welcome flow, have a cart abandon, have a browse abandon, have a win back to win people back who haven't purchased, like do all those basic things. But if there's any moments where you can make it more human and make it feel more real and like personal beyond just your first name, you have a plain text email from an actual person at your company, encourage them to reach out to you. I think it's always worthwhile to kind of like dazzle and delight in that way.
Got it.
Yeah, very low tech.
Yeah, and Piper, like, would you think about, having direct customer calls, and how often do you think it could be done at a quarter level so that it adds? Because I know as a retention marketer, content also plays a very important role when it comes to campaigns or putting out right things on your journey. Automation. So you suggest people should also regularly go on customer calls so that they get pulse and voice of customers while creating content?
I mean, in theory, I'd love to spend time with the customer. There's actually one time when we had an SMS tool that accidentally listed my phone number on our SMS contact card. And so I started getting calls for a day. I was like, how did this happen? They were not always the nicest calls, to be very honest, but people asking for their order and things. I love the idea of that, but I recognize like time is maybe one of the most valuable expenses that a customer experience team or a CS team has. I think everyone at a company should work in CS for a day at their company to just see what kind of experiences and conversations happen. I think even in a text base, there's a lot of bots. I don't say bots, but there's a lot of robotic interactions or transactional interactions that a customer goes through as they're purchasing or going through your FAQ page, and even just sending an email or a text. Think your CS program with your SMS. So many people on the phone, that even feels personal. Sign all your messages with your actual name of your agents or you. I mean, I don't think it necessarily has to be a phone call per se. There's some great AI-powered phone operators and there's amazing call centers around the world that can help you. It might not be relevant for your type of business. You may have a Gen Z customer who hates being on the phone and they would rather just text. So I don't want to give a blanket statement that it's the one size fits all, but I'll just say even from an email SMS point of view, like that goes a long way.
Yeah. The point is you have to stay close to your customers in one form or another. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Great, Piper. Moving on to next question, which is from Sam. She's asking, what is the most challenging thing about retention marketing in your opinion, and what's the best way you have tackled that challenge? probably this is something that keeps you up at night. So that's why I would love to hear from you.
I think it's our nature in retention and customer experience to be really empathetic and just want to give discounts, give dollars, give free shipping, give discount codes. And I recognize a lot of businesses, especially small businesses, have tighter margins. They maybe can't really be as generous as bigger box stores or really big retailers. So, I mean, I think a big challenge is like, how can you make your audience feel loved and appreciated and cared for? If you make a mistake, like how do you make them know that you're like really earnestly sorry, and you maybe can't give them a full refund, you maybe can't give them there are some financial constraints that like your business has because they need to survive and they need to continue operating with tight margins. Especially small businesses have much tighter margins to work within. So I think it's kind of the challenge is like, as a business, like figuring out almost like a playbook of like what types of discounts or a discount code or free shipping or kind of experiences can you offer people. Free gift with purchase, again, that's also something that's very underrated and goes a long way. You may know you have one product that's like very low margin or very high margin, so you can give it away for free, but not every product is like that. So I think it's like finding ways to just be generous at the right times and not actually hurt your business. I many moons ago worked with a brand that was too generous and we'd give out free samples on every order of product. We'd give 3 free samples and they were very sizable samples. And the business really struggled financially because we didn't realize they hadn't done a margin analysis on those samples, and they were so expensive for labor, but in materials and preparations that we had to really change it. So you only got those if you hit a certain threshold of spend. So again, this, I think just really sussing that out and making a plan. You don't really want some bull in a china shop, coming into the company and just like sending $100 gift card, and you realize you can't actually afford to do that to retain that customer. That doesn't align with the lifetime value or whatnot. So have your playbook, know what's scalable, what's reasonable, and what you save for special occasions like a Black Friday or a really big mistake that you need to apologize for.
Just curious, Piper, as a retention marketer, do you take budgets from your team on a quarterly basis or an annual basis for retention marketing?
There are quarterly budgets, I think. Like in the same way, like an influencer program might have a budget of like how much product can we give away, or the value of product we can give away. I think it's important. Like I don't give away a 10% discount code and then try to calculate how much of the margin or how much of the budget has gone towards that. But it is really wonderful if we work with customer experience and say, hey, could we get $1,000 for this Black Friday promo, and then send out $100 gift cards to select people? Like, is that within budget for a team? And it's great at the end of the year when you're kind of sussing things out to see what you have left. But honestly, a lot of retention budget often comes from other departments and teams. I don't necessarily get a budget every quarter to like go have fun and make people feel, magical and delightful. It really is like, oh, let me talk to the warehouse packing team and see, like, do we have extra inventory we could give away for free? Yeah, a little less organized.
Got it. So how do you consciously, control or, keep in mind that, okay, this is what I can give out as samples, or this is the amount I can spend on, getting customers back? How do you put that control in your mind consciously while doing retention marketing?
This is where you think about like your long-term goal. I would love to dazzle and delight people every day. I would love to give customers free product and just like wonderful experiences, but you gotta keep the end game in mind. What segment is this person part of? Like in their life cycle, if you're gonna get someone over the hump of that first purchase, when someone makes a first purchase, what is usually the lifetime value of that customer just to get to first purchase? Let's say it's $50. Well, you don't want to spend $100 on a free gift. You maybe want to spend $5 or $10. It's sort of like our instead of a CAC, a cost per acquisition that we use in sort of ads, of how much you're spending on an ad to convert somebody. You kind of can think about that in the retention sense too, is like at different stages. If someone is a super VIP and they've spent over $1,000, you may be able to afford to give them a little bit more of a generous gift or a product, because that one push, or that if they get one more purchase, it's just going to have such a big return on the investment. It's going to have a really big impact. You may realize that there's a product that has a really high repurchase rate. So people who receive this product the very first time they purchase at a company, that they come back a month, 2 months, 3 months later to buy again because they had such a great experience. And like, you may realize the value of that product is $100, but really you have a really good margin on it. It's much lower. Like, you can think about that as like, all right, maybe we give this away for free if they spend X amount, because it's worth it to get them to that next line. So don't just blindly give gifts. have some data in mind of like what you're trying to achieve, a first purchase or a spend threshold or an order count number. Very helpful.
Yeah, makes sense. This was very helpful. In the end, the conclusion that I'm driving from your answers is it's important to know the stage of your customer. Without knowing that, you can't run retention marketing.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can build out this. There's so many different types of stages. You could do it just by order count. That's really basic. How many orders have they placed? You can do it by spend. What's the total spend threshold? And then there's more detailed ones about the recency, or even, again, how old a customer is in terms of how long they've been with you. There's so many different kind of metrics, but again, it's, make a plan, make your map out, like literally journey map. When someone purchases from you, if they're going to spend 5 years with your brand, like, you kind of could figure out like, well, how often would you like them to purchase? What kind of items are they getting? What's the lifetime value? You could sort of make that map to help guide those different touch points at different stages.
Absolutely, Piper. Thanks for that. Moving on to our next question from Amanda. She's asking, people keep getting advices from here and there, but according to you, Piper, like, how do you make sense out of any advice? How do you come to know, or to come to a conclusion that whether you should take this advice and execute on that, or you should just skip that advice altogether? Maybe it's like just from a woman leader point of view question.
Yeah, I mean, I love marketing, but everyone thinks they know marketing better than you, like, all the time. Like, everyone has feedback about ads, about copy, about design, and like, sometimes you have to take it with a grain of salt. Sometimes you have to think like, okay, there are people in the room who know nothing about marketing and the strategy, but they could be like a customer stepping in with fresh eyes. And if they're confused by this, the customer might be confused by it too. So I think sometimes taking critical feedback is never personal. It's never a target on your skill or your technical quality or your creativity. Yes, it can be challenging and frustrating when you spend so much time on something, but recognizing like think about the journey of this person, like what stage, what shoes are they stepping into in their perspective, might help you realize like, well, okay, this person works in the accounting department. They're probably just thinking about the margin. They're maybe not really thinking about anything else. Like, I don't think this feedback is the most relevant. Especially as you're in your career, you can say the same thing. Like, as I chat with older women who become mentors and friends, sometimes their feedback is a little bit dated. And I realize the way that they progressed in their career 10 years ago, it's a little bit different now. The way performance reviews happen, the way people job hop now in their careers. I mean, my amazing mom was out of one company for 20 years. Like, that's very uncommon now. Doesn't mean all her advice is bad. It just means it maybe is different. So you gotta kind of pick and choose what feels right and relevant, but also, like, if you're a good retention marketer, you're gonna A/B test. If you're a good marketer, you're gonna A/B test. Sometimes you just gotta try stuff you're not sure about, and see if it works. And if it doesn't, you can just quickly pivot.
Absolutely. Experiment yourself, and that's the best. Yeah, absolutely. Bye. This brings me to the last question from our audience today, which is, please talk about the most time-consuming, challenging roadblock you have hit with any project that you have done so far, and how you navigated it. It's from Basya.
I think that's a really interesting question. There's a lot of things that are really time-consuming. Sometimes it's fun. Like, I love copywriting. Is me writing copy for an hour the most effective use of my time? Sometimes no. Generative AI, ChatGPT, Claude, they could all help write copy, give me a first draft that I then tweak, and saves me time. So there are some tasks that I recognize I am just doing it because I delight in it. I love copy editing. I don't do it every day. I'm not doing it all the time, but sometimes I'm just in the mood to give that a shot. But I think something I've seen a lot of companies and retention teams get really stifled by, is very time consuming, is reporting and analytics. There's so many tools out there. There's Google Analytics, there's Shopify Analytics, there's the analytics in your email platform, your SMS platform, your push platform. And I think sometimes we're so inundated with data and reporting, and we're trying to keep track of everything that we lose sight of what is most important. Sometimes you don't have to look at certain dashboards or certain reports every day. You don't have to look at them every week, but maybe you need to look at them every month. So this is kind of an area where I think there will always be tools and innovations in how data is presented. It's very easy to spend hours and hours combing through raw data, combing through Shopify orders, combing through individual email campaigns, and like seeing how things perform. But whenever possible, if there's a way, again, you have to check with your legal team, but sometimes if you have public-facing data, like review data, for example, you can export it, feed it into an LLM or a ChatGPT to help synthesize some of the analysis. You can't do that with certain private data that may not be compliant with your privacy policies. Like, talk to your legal team, but there are a lot of tools and apps out there to try to simplify, and honestly, they make things more complicated. I have a brand that like doesn't even use Google Analytics. They disabled Google Analytics because it was so disorienting and skewing their team with way too much information. They didn't even want it. They just disconnected it, and they rely on Shopify Analytics now. Would every brand, should they do that? Maybe not. I don't know. It's up to you. Decide your tech stack, but like, choose your source of truth. Get rid of some of the noise. Not every tool has data that's valuable. I think it's like you got to put up your blinders so that you don't get like too lost in the sauce.
Yeah. Sometimes overdose of data, overdose of matrices also, basically lose your focus in the work.
You lose your focus. Yeah.
And Piper, tell me, since you had a brief thing about this copywriting, how do you usually take inspiration while writing copies? Is it like you keep saving posts on Instagram or Pinterest, and like while generating copies, that's where you take inspiration from? Like, how do you approach that problem statement?
I am an email marketer's dream come true. I subscribe to so many email newsletters and SMS programs. Sometimes I'll go on a binge. I just sign up to tons of brands SMS. Bad artists copy, great artists steal. I mean, it's like you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Like, if you see a cart abandon email that's really good, like, tweak it to your brand voice and give it a try. Like, no one's gonna come after you to be like, you stole the copy from my email. Like, I'm so upset. Because they probably stole it from somebody else. So I think consuming a lot of copy there, of course, like, I'm a very big reader, and consuming media that's not in my industry is actually like very important to me. I'm a really big food, restaurant, hospitality nerd. I think that helps me be a better retention marketer, thinking about how those industries are so thoughtful with how they approach customer experiences. When you walk into a restaurant and you have an amazing experience and it's a physically native experience, sometimes my brain just likes to fantasize of like, well, if I made this digital, what would that be like? How could you create that same warmth and connection? So yeah, obviously you got to consume a lot of content, but we're all too addicted to our phones anyway. So chat with people, ask your fellow marketers, reach out to someone you admire on LinkedIn who works at a company you think is cool, and be like, hey, I really love your work. Like, what email newsletters do you subscribe to that are inspiring? Like, that might honestly get you a great list of copy inspiration.
Which restaurants you take inspiration from, Piper, in New York?
Oh my God, so many restaurants. It's really funny. I have a bakery in my neighborhood that it's amazing. The atmosphere is amazing. The baked goods are amazing. The coffee is really lovely, and you just feel like you're stepping into a whole new time, but the service is really bad. And I want to love this. I love this place, but it's like part of the charm is that I know I'm going to have like rude servers. And I think if only these people were nice, like how much better this would be. So I get inspiration even from the bad experiences in the neighborhood. There are plenty of great restaurants. I mean, they're and cafes and things, but yeah, if you're in New York, which is so famous for kind of like bad service and unfriendly service, like when someone is really kind, you notice, you really, really notice. So yeah, always keep your eyes peeled.
Yeah, absolutely, Piper. So, thank you so much, Piper, for answering all those questions. One piece of advice that you would like to give to all the ladies out here who have taken out time from such a precious week, almost last week,
Oh,
work week of the year, what would be that one advice for all of us?
yeah, you know what? I'd say in the new year, we're like kicking off January. I think finding connection is so important, even in the digital space. Whether you're in New York City or you're in a small town or even just another state or country, reach out to someone on LinkedIn. Don't try to sell them your product, but just say like, I admire your work and I'm trying to connect with other women in marketing or people in retention. Like, would you be game to chat for 20 minutes just to share some inspiration with each other? There's a lot of salesy people, and so folks might have their guard up and say, "No, I don't want to do that." But the few times that has worked for me have been so meaningful and have turned into friendships and invitations to physical events and dinners and things like that. So I would say, like, bring the human side back to this digital marketing world that we're in to kind of nourish your soul and your also creativity.
Be open to opportunities.
Yeah.
Absolutely, Piper. Thank you so much for taking our time today, and thank you, crowd, who have joined us. Though for those of you who are already part of our community, we'll share a meeting minutes as well. Whatever Piper listed, we'll also share, some tips collating and also summarizing the conversation that we had today. And for those who are not part of our community yet, we'll share you the link shortly over email as well, and I'll put here as well. But thank you so much for joining in. If you have any questions, feel free to put in the community. Thanks, Piper, and happy holidays, everyone.